Bedtime story for little stoner. Sylvester and Tweety in I Taw a Puddy Tat. See, there's Puddy Tat. You're Tweety. Puddy Tat alarm and Granny. Happy birthday, Bugs. 50th anniversary. Sylvester and Tweety and I Taw a Puddy Tat. Tweety. Like, and Sylvester, and I don't know the dog. I should know the dog's name. Okay. You've got to help me, Doc. Sylvester begged. I have to get over this bird habit of mine. Look what it's done to me. Said the doctor. Yeah, Sylvester's not looking so well. He's like all beaten up, got his tail in a bandage, crutches. You see all these bandages? This is what happened last time I went after that Tweety bird, moaned Sylvester. Oh, I tried getting over birds before, Sylvester went on. One time I even joined this organization that was supposed to cure me. Let me tell you about it. Ooh, and the doctor is Siegfried Cat. And we got a picture of Daffy Duck in the background. It was a group called Birds Anonymous, Sylvester explained. The whole thing began on a normal day, like any other, the perfect kind of day for catching birds. Yeah, he's getting ready to go after the Tweety. Like, yep, he's going after Tweety. Like in his dream. Tweety goes, I thought I saw a putty tat. And he's on a rickety lamp in a chair on a little step stool. Being a cat, I simply love birds. On this particular day, I was involved in my favorite pursuit, trying to invite one for dinner. But just as I grabbed the little yellow critter, the window opened up, and an orange cat I'd never seen before peered through the blinds. I wouldn't do that if I were you, he said. If I were you, I'd put him back. Strangely, I felt the need to do what he said. I opened the door and put the Tweety bird back in his cage. It only takes one bird to lead to self-destruction, the strange cat went on, and before you know it, it's two birds, then three. Suddenly, without knowing it, you're evicted. Victim. Then one day, the end of the road. I gulped. Everything he said made a strange kind of sense. If you really want to beat the bird habit, look us up. The cat went on, handing me his card. We can help you. I looked at the card. On it was printed the words Birds Anonymous. Yeah, Birds Anonymous, headquarters, 901 Halligan's Alley. Here we are, Halligan's Alley. The next day, I found myself in Halligan's Alley attending a meeting of Birds Anonymous. The place was crawling with cats. Our new member has come to us for help, the orange cat said the orange cat. introducing me to the others. Would someone volunteer to tell him what BA, Birds Anonymous, has done for him? I was a 3-day bird a day pussycat until BA helped me, said a striped tabby. The other birds nodded and applauded. And there's the tabby with a bird on the shoulder, even. I was inspired. Fellow members, I cried. From now on, my motto is birds are strictly for the birds. This time, everybody applauded me. It was heartwarming. It was a heartwarming experience. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could live without birds. Oh, he's patting Tweety. I went home with new resolve. I was absolutely sure I could lick my problem. Good morning, my little feathered friend, I said to the bird. I've got it beat, I thought to myself. I'll never go after another bird again. I decided to turn on the TV and watch my favorite soap opera. But no sooner than I touched the dial, I saw what was on I was on a program about cooking, and they were preparing roast duck. As I watched them baste the delicious-looking bird, my mouth began to water, my stomach began to rumble, my resolve began to crumble. Ooh, Puddy looks hungry. I was desperate for a bird, and there staring at me from his cage was the Tweety bird. I had to stop myself. I tried the radio, but it was no help. The song they were playing was called When the Red Robin Comes Bop Bop Bocking Along. Ooh, and he chained himself to a radiator and has pulled that out of the floor. Finally, I chained myself to a radiator, but it was no use. I had to have that bird. After all, I am a pussycat. Hey, Mr. Puddytat, don't you like me anymore? Puddytat says, I think you're delicious. Like he's under the spell of getting Tweety Bird to eat. Luckily, just as I was about to give in, my good friend from Birds Anonymous came through the door and stopped me. I'm sorry I had to do that, he told me, but I was afraid you might be weakening. And Sylvester got shot in the mouth with a plunger, keeping him from gulping down the Tweety Bird. Believe me, he went on, birds and cats can live together in brotherly love. Watch. With that, he put out his paw. Come here, little bird. The Tweety Bird sat on his palm. You see, said the cat, turning to me, I really love birds. But then he started to look a little funny. I do love birds, he muttered. I do. It's like Orange Tabby is starting to salivate a bit, holding the Tweety in his hand. Suddenly, my new friend started to eat my Tweety Bird. It was all I could do to stop him. No, I shouted. Remember what you told me? Finally, I got him under control. But if he couldn't stay off my birds, what hope was there for me? It's like they're fighting. It's like, ugh, wood, tackle. And Tweety is going, flutter, to get away. Let him go. I gotta have him. And see, his eyes are all crazed like Sylvester's were earlier. Like I said before, once a bad old putty tat, always a bad old putty tat. And Tweety's in his cage going home, tweet home. I didn't know what to do after that, Doc, sobbed Sylvester. I was hooked on birds all over again. Yes, said the doctor. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. And when I did, I had these terrible dreams, moaned Sylvester. And the doctor's snoring in the background, and even Bugs Bunny's picture on the wall is nodding off. That same night, I fell asleep on an empty stomach. All I had to eat were a couple of beans, and then I had the strangest dream I've ever had. Why did you go and trade our cow for a handful of beans? And he's juggling some beans. It was a dark and stormy night. As I slept, I had a very strange feeling. It seemed as if my basket were rising into the sky. When I opened my eyes, I found myself below the clouds, going up. Somehow a giant beanstalk had started to grow right beneath me. As it grew, I got carried higher and higher, going up and up and up through the clouds. When the vine that was carrying me finally stopped growing, I was in a foreign land, way above the earth. Things seemed just a little strange, although I couldn't quite figure out how. Then I saw a castle in the distance, so I thought I'd take a look and see who lived there. Maybe they'd have something for me to eat. I sure was hungry. Suffering succotash. Look at the size of that house. And look at the size of these bugs right here. Nobody answered when I knocked on the door, so I climbed up the giant bricks of the castle wall and onto a window ledge. Boy, was I surprised when the first thing I saw was a giant Tweety bird. This is what I'd always wanted. It seemed like my dreams were about to come true. Now, Bruno. I believe this is Bruno. And you see Sylvester got into the cage and is carrying away a giant Tweety. But then suddenly I heard a giant noise. And that's what it was, all right. A giant. I quickly put the bird back in his cage and raced down the wall. I hid behind a doorway as the giant came into the room and picked up Tweety Bird's cage. I'd better hang you there, Tweety Bird, while I'm gone, the giant rumbled. That way you'll be safe. The giant reached up and hung the cage high on a rafter. The Tweety Bird is way up in the air and safe from the putty tat. And the dog is starting to wake up. Then the giant walked out of the room, closing the door behind him. I looked up at the giant cage. I just had to have that giant Tweety Bird. I went racing around looking for something to help me reach him. In the giant's tool chest, I found a giant screwdriver, and that gave me an idea. I would unscrew the bottom of the cage, and the giant Tweety Bird would fall into my waiting paws. Soon I would have a giant lunch. And so he's got the screwdriver tied to a pole so he can reach up and undo the bottom of the cage. Only problem was I had forgotten exactly how big that bird cage was. After I had unscrewed the bottom, it came crashing down and landed right on top of me. Yep, you can see the circle of it falling. And then plaff. Ping, ping, ping. The screws from it. And there's Sylvester smushed between the Tweety bird cage and the floor. I wasn't ready to give up. I had another brilliant idea. On the table was a giant bottle of seltzer, a couple of shakes, and I would take off like a rocket towards that bird cage. The giant Tweety bird would be mine, all mine. There's the seltzer. And pop, there goes Sylvester riding up on the cork. The only problem was my rocket ship had a little too much power. I zipped right up toward the cage all right, but overshot my mark. Poop! Into the ceiling. And now he's sawing a hole from where the cork is stuck in the ceiling. Let himself out. Soon I'd be down and ready to try again. However, I was in a hurry. Lunch was waiting. I didn't notice the giant dog. I guess my appetite had blinded me. The dog had obviously noticed me. He thought we could make beautiful music together. Sylvester is letting himself down a rope, and he's right between the cymbals. Unfortunately, the dog loved crashing cymbals, which gave me a headache. And worse, I could hear the giant himself coming back. What was I going to do? Just as the giant came into the room and saw me, I managed to escape through the window. I raced away from the castle and towards the beanstalk. If only I could get there before the giant caught me. I climbed down as fast as I could, but the giant was gaining on me. Fee, fi, fat. I thought I saw a puddy tat. The giant's coming down. And Sylvester is shimmying his way down as fast as he can. As soon as I got to Earth, I chopped the beanstalk down. I thought that was the end of the story. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I had forgotten that when I chopped down the beanstalk, the giant would come down to Earth too. And that was the end of the story. Uh-oh! Giant coming down on top of Sylvester. And that was my dream, Doc. What do you think it meant? I thought I saw a putty tat. And there's Tweety coming out of the, kitty cat psychiatrist's head. Going, you did. In the end. And other books that are available. Well, I hope you like the story, Little Stoner. Now go nighty-night.